I started out really with a fox moth, an all wood and fabric airplane. Paid for that bit by bit and built up more airplanes and more airplanes. But I found that the Air Transport Board of the Government of Canada wouldn't allow me to expand very far up in the north. I wanted to put in scheduled services and so on, but I was shot down in every case, you might say. So once I noticed there were some foreign airplanes here doing charters, starting to do charters, and propeller-driven airplanes in those days. And I thought, maybe I could get into that. So the Air Transport Board permitted me to do that, which surprised me very much. And so we bought or leased a DC-6 from Grant McConaughey at Canadian Pacific, and we started using that DC-6 in the north, and also we did charters in the summer. So this built up bit by bit. And then finally, when we created a market for charters, we then got a jet. And our economics with the propeller-driven airplane was not very good, but it taught us what it cost to fly the Arctic, and we figured, well, if we took 3 years and developed the market, we could afford to go for a very expensive jet, and away we went. Very expensive in those days. But we had a natural market. And by 1960s, a lot of the wives that had come from Europe with their husbands who were in the services wanted to go home and see their families. And so we were flying warblides back to Canada, or back from Canada to the UK and Europe and the Scandinavian countries, and in the early 60s and so on. And so charters became very, very, very popular. And as we developed, we needed loads both directions. So as we developed, after a while, all the relatives of the war brides wanted to come to Canada and see Canada. So we brought them to Canada, and so we had two-way loads, and it worked out very well. But it was the circumstances of the times. But it took a long time to get the market going, but when it did, it was very strong. In the early days when we started out, charters didn't have a very good reputation because a lot of people were getting into it and they were kind of haywire, and the airplanes were falling out of the sky a bit. And so we said, well, we better do this right. And so we wanted to make sure we had a good service, because there were long flights, 20-hour flights in a DC-6, and everybody loved it. We had one case where after 20 hours we landed in Norway and they were playing cards, and the group didn't get off. They wouldn't get off until they finished the card game. So if you make it pleasant for people, they enjoyed it. Of course, in those days, most people hadn't flown. And a lot of people, when they were walking 2 feet off the floor, really, when they were going over to visit their folks for the first time since the war, it was very exciting and very satisfying.